Hello there, and welcome to the first episode of Rebel Leader with a Heart. My name is Murielle, and in this episode, I just wanted to introduce myself because I think it's important to know who I am. I also wanted to share with you why I created this podcast and why you should listen to it. So, why should you listen? Are you looking for more meaning in your career? Are you tired of working really hard for too little impact? Do you want to change your organization, the mindset, the culture, or your team? Do you want to increase your impact in fast-changing digital times? Maybe you've lost your motivation, or you want a great career and a great life, or you want to inspire other people to follow you. That's why I've created this podcast, because I see too many people around me working really hard, not having a meaningful life, sometimes even suffering without always noticing it themselves, losing their motivation, or people who think they have to choose between having a great life or a great career. Well, I truly believe that's not the choice you have to make. There are other choices you will have to make, but having a great life and a great career will help you in both aspects of your life. So who am I? My name is Murielle. I live in Brussels, in Belgium. I'm a mother of two teenage boys, Max and Luca. And I used to be the CEO of a media company in the midst of a digital transformation. I quit that, and I'll share why I quit that company a little bit later in the podcast. And today I started Key Leader, where I help leaders build meaningful lives and meaningful organizations. And organizations that can adapt themselves really easily to the fast pace that we are living now in the digital times. I'm also an academic director at Solvay Brussels School for the program Leading Authentically in Digital Times. I also teach with that program the MBA students, so the future leaders of our country. I am a friend and I have lots of friends. I like to party, to go out. I like to exercise. I do 10,000 steps a day. I do that now for over 50 days and I hope I will stick to it. I go running in the forest also 2 or 3 times a week. I'm a very slow runner, but I do it. I love to go to the spa, to read. I also have a little house in Spain where I spend in Andalusia, where I spend 1 week per month, approximately, surrounded by olive trees, oranges, grapes, really great. I love the slow life there. I love the people there. And I usually work less than 30 hours a week. But I started this trend of working less when I was still a CEO. And that's what I want to help you achieve as well. I want you to work less, to have a meaningful life while having success at work. And why do I want that? Well, for that, I just wanted to share a little bit the story of when I was a CEO, because I didn't have this great life. I only have this great life for a couple of years now, because before I was working really hard. When I started as a CEO, or when I became a CEO of the media company, I had to transform it. I had to do the turnaround to increase revenues, and my shareholders, they wanted to sell the organization as well. And so I started working really hard, and I started doing everything that was requested from me. And at a certain point, I lost myself. I had worked so hard while not having the impact I really wanted, and I found myself at a crossroads where I had to choose. I could continue working like this, but I could feel I would burn out. And this was something that I tried to hide to myself. I had some friends telling me, Murielle, we can see there is something, you're not the Murielle that we usually know. There is something. And I could feel that. I could really feel that if I would continue on this path of working really hard and of trying to delivering everything, I would burn out. Like many people in my organization were already burned out. So the other option was I could change jobs, but then by talking to people, to friends, to people in my network, I noticed that it was the same everywhere. So I choose option number 3 is I choose to deal with a situation in a different way. And the first thing I did was I adopted new business techniques, but that the new business techniques for the fast changing digital times, but that wasn't enough. I started to read, to implement these, to understand a lot, but it wasn't changing that much. I understood what was happening to me, but it wasn't helping enough. I was still too much in my head and overthinking things, and like I said, reading, going to courses, understanding, but it was all too much in my head until I had this intuition that told me, get out of your head. The solution to this problem is not in your head. Get out of your head. And that's when I enrolled to an ontological coaching training in the US, and not because I wanted to become a coach, but maybe I don't like to admit this, but I thought I understood that I needed coaching, and I had this idea that how can a coach help me? Because they don't understand my situation. I'm a CEO with a very high pressure coming from my shareholders. So, you know what? I'm going to enroll to the coaching program. I'm going to become my own coach. So, that wasn't the best reason to do it, but it was the best reason, or it was the best decision of my life, because it changed a lot of things to me. So I enrolled to this program, New Field Network, in the US, because it was a coaching program that worked not only with the mind. I'm very rational, I like thinking, but I noticed that wasn't the solution anymore. So I chose that one because it was also working with emotions and a body. And I really had this intuition that I had to get out of my head and into my body. So I did this coaching, and I did it for myself first and for my organization, and not because I wanted to become a coach. I did the coaching, and it completely transformed myself. And I started changing my habits. I started working less, and I started adopting a whole bunch of new habits that I will talk about in this podcast. And I got this new life. And not only did it change my life, did I reconnect to who I truly was, to my values, to who I wanted to be. I started to lead not only with my head, but also with my heart. I started showing my vulnerability. But that's also how we got great results as an organization. So by adopting the new business techniques, by adopting new habits that I learned in that coaching, by getting out of my head, into my body, listening to my emotions, much more, we got great results. We got double-digit profit growth. We got exponential increase in digital users. But most importantly, we got 0 burnouts, an absenteeism half of the national average, and all while working much less than before. And now when I tell it like this, it looks like a great story of success, but it wasn't a great story of success. It was a story of 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 2 steps forward, 2 steps backward. And I think during this whole transformation of myself, but also of my organization, I think I wanted to give up like 50 times. But what kept me going was my why. And it wasn't only the why of my organization, because we had a great why. We wanted to improve education in Belgium, which is of course a great why. But I had another why. I really had this thing in me where I wanted to prove to the world, to the financial world, the economical world, to other leaders, that even with a high pressure to deliver profits, and I can assure you that this pressure was really, really high. I felt like a constant risk of having to lay off people because we weren't increasing fast enough our profits. So this pressure was really heavy on my shoulders. But I wanted to prove that despite having shareholders who only cared about one thing, and that was profit, and short-term profit, not profit in 5 years, but profit this year, I wanted to prove that even with that pressure, I could lead the organization with my heart. And that was what kept me going. Despite every failure, every setback, I picked myself up and I thought, no, I'm going to prove that it works. And so why did I leave then? Well, at a certain point, I had proven that it worked. So I really had built this meaningful organization where I valued people, relationship, values, where we had massages at work, where I encouraged people to have a great family life, and we had great results. And so, because I had proven this and I was seeing a lot of friends and people around me still in this old model of working really hard with traditional techniques, I wanted to quit and I wanted to help them. And it wasn't easy to quit, because I remember when I decided to quit, I really had to cry. And I had to cry as if somebody had died, because I had put my heart and soul in this organization to build it, and now I was going to leave it, and it was like leaving a family. And I don't know why, but I have now the tears coming back to me when I think about it. It was really like leaving a family. But a family I had to leave because I really was seeing something bigger. So I'm very ambitious, and this ambition is great, and ambitious not in terms of wanting to have like a big salary or a big career, but I'm always ambitious in wanting to change the world or wanting in my objectives, which is a blessing because it gets me far, but also a curse, because sometimes it's really heavy on my shoulders. So I quit because I wanted to help other leaders like you build meaningful lives and meaningful organizations. Because I really see too many people around me having burnouts, not taking care of their families, thinking or putting their own needs really in a little box closed inside them, as if it's not that important, and just trying to deliver, because that's what we have learned in our careers and at school. You just have to deliver, you cannot fail, and you cannot pause, you have to work hard, you just pause once you're finished. And so that's why I wanted to create this podcast, because I know there is another way. I know it's because I found it for myself when I was leading this great organization, but I know it's because now in the last 3.5 years, I've helped other leaders and other organizations transform, and very big organizations like Nestle. And now I want to help you. I want to help you build this meaningful life, change your habits, adopt new business techniques, so that you can change yourself, so that you can be there for your loved ones, and so that you can also transform your team and your organization. And why do I call it Rebel Leader with a Heart? Because, well, first of all, because I believe I am a little bit a rebel leader with a heart. I have a very empathic side. Maybe you noticed it already now in this first podcast. I like to listen to people. I'm very empathic. When somebody cries, I always have to cry as well. I like to inspire, to give advice. But I also have a rebel side. I don't like to do something like other people do. When somebody tells me that's not possible, my first idea is challenge, accept it. I will prove that it's possible. I really love to challenge the status quo. And you will also see in this podcast a lot of things that I will teach you or talk about are pretty counterintuitive. It's probably going to go against what you've always done. But it works. I have proven it for myself. I've proven it with other leaders. I now teach it at Solvay, at the MBA, so it works. And it's time for leaders and for you to become a rebel. It's time for something else. And it's time for something else for not only for you, for your family, for your organization, but it's also time for something else for our planet, I believe. And that's why I want you to challenge the status quo as well and to become this rebel. I don't want you to be a rebel and to do whatever. I just want you to challenge the status quo and to be really connected to what you truly care about. Because when leaders are connected to what matters to them and not connected to their fears, that's when great things happen. And great things happen for them, for their team, their organization, and even for the planet. So that was it. I also wanted to share that in the last years, like I told you, I've helped many leaders and organizations, but I've identified then specific traits and characterizes each of them. And if you want to know what kind of leader you are, you can take this little 2-minute test that we developed. You just go to rebelleaderwithaheart.com/quiz or to the show notes of this podcast. And you take this test, you will get your leadership profile. I've identified 8 profiles. But you'll also then receive 7 personalized lessons that will help you and a roadmap to transform yourself, your team, and your organization. So it's a leadership test, but it doesn't mean that you have to have a team for that, because I truly believe that we need leaders out there, and you are a leader because you are already a leader of your life. You really don't have to have a team for that. So take this quiz and don't hesitate to share it with your friends and colleagues if you want to help them too. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, which will be all about having a great life, a meaningful life, a successful career, if you don't want to choose, then please subscribe to this podcast because I will deliver to you every week a new episode. And of course, if you enjoyed this first podcast, please leave a review, subscribe, because those are really important. Because all these reviews that you will leave will help me to show the podcast to even more leaders and will help me help even more leaders. And I truly believe that profit follows purpose. So my purpose is to help you build a meaningful life. And I'm sure that if I manage to do that, I will be able to have my meaningful life, of course, as well. Okay, so in the next episode, I'm going to share with you why we are all so busy and what you can do to stop being so busy, why organizations don't adapt fast enough, and the one thing you should start doing to have more peace of mind. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode. I was a little bit nervous about it because there is always a first time, but I've enjoyed doing it. So I hope I'll see you next week. Bye!